The last few weeks I've been playing 2 games simultaneously, Crash Bandicoot and Sane Trilogy, and The End is Nigh. If you're unfamiliar, the first is an HD remake of the first 3 Crash games from the PlayStation 1, and the second is the latest creation by Edmund McMillen, almost a spiritual successor to Super Meat Boy. When I started these games, I thought they would have nothing in common, but it turns out they are similar in a lot of ways. Both are platformers, both have a focus on secrets and completionism, and both are really hard. But there is a major difference that sets them apart. One has good controls, and one has bad controls. Now, don't get me wrong, is the Insane Trilogy still fun to play? Sure. But I think comparing its differences with The End is Nigh illuminates a perfect case study on the importance of controlling your character. Let's break it down a little bit. So I've played Crash Bandicoot 1 and 2 a bit as a kid, but never got too far. I remember bits and pieces, but for the most part I went in with a fresh mindset, especially looking at it from an analytical perspective this time around. The Insane Trilogy looks beautiful, and it's cool to see Crash in high definition, but all of the level design from 20 years ago is still intact, for better or for worse. Poor depth perception and a fixed camera that can't be moved at all hasn't been changed, resulting in a lot of deaths purely from having a bad perspective of the platforms. When the stages turn into 2D sections, it's a little better, and yes, you can get used to the distance Crash can jump eventually, but don't worry, they make up for it with a plethora of running toward the camera levels, which are still a big nuisance since you can't really see what's coming next and requires a lot of trial and error. But what makes matters worse this time around is that they've changed Crash's physics a little bit, so that his jump is faster, requiring speedier reaction time, and he has an affinity to falling off objects he's bouncing on, which leads to inconsistent platforming. But they didn't adjust any of the levels to accommodate for these changes, causing some serious problems. Hitboxes seem fickle, and Crash overall feels slow and cumbersome to move. On the flip side, stages where you ride animals are fast and floaty. Combined with poor conveyance of what exactly can hurt you, this leads to many deaths that simply don't feel justified. Now, they added a slide move to make Crash move a little faster in the sequel, and Crash 3 certainly has better level design and movement options. It even rewards you with new abilities when you beat a boss, which is excellent. Unfortunately, all the variety and wacky situations can't repair a fundamentally broken game. A simple fix that I think could have alleviated many of the issues would be to just add more Aku Aku masks, which are essentially Crash's health, to allow for more mistakes to be made. In its current state, it seems like they're placed down at random. Some levels will have a whole bunch and some levels have none at all. The boss fights especially felt frustrating as there's no margin for error, and getting hit once will start the whole battle over again, which often involves waiting for cycles to finish that you've seen a dozen times already. Some stages are long and grueling with very few checkpoints, but others are quite short and have plenty of them. Adding just a few more masks here and there would have made the arduous, tense sections without any help much more manageable. Plus, a bonus stage acts as a checkpoint when you finish it, so there's no need to have a checkpoint box right next to one. It truly seems like checkpoints and masks are arbitrarily placed without any forethought. And if they're gonna go through the trouble of remaking these games, little tweaks like this seem obvious and stick out like a sore thumb when they're missing. Not to mention that the new trilogy only runs at 30 FPS, so sometimes it feels like the game will eat your input or not react in time even if you press the correct button. Crash encourages you to find all the secret pathways and gems you can unlock, but most of them either can't be completed your first try or are too annoying to even attempt, like opening a death pathway by not taking any damage, or backtracking all the way to the start to break a couple more boxes. So eventually, I started rushing through without hunting down anything, because what's the point if I can't complete it anyway? And you can collect relics by speedrunning through the stages, but it doesn't even show you the required times for the different tiers? Like, how easy would that have been to put in? Instead, you have to just run as fast as you can and hope you get a platinum. But when all is said and done, there are simply some really bad jumps in here. Probably the best example of all these gripes is the level High Road, which requires precise platforming on breakable planks and jumping on turtles to cross huge gaps that are too big to cross most of the time, even if you feel like you did everything right. Crash's jump requires some momentum to get to full speed, but you're given less and less space to work with the further you get into the game. So if the turtle isn't on the very edge of the bridge and you don't get enough of a lead up before you jump, it's impossible to make this leap. If you can run through your entire stock of 30 lives on one area of a level and none of the deaths feel like they were your fault, you might have a problem with your game design. So to sum up, what makes Crash so frustrating to play? poor depth perception, harder physics, bad conveyance and pacing, unforgiving checkpoints and health systems, and slow and unresponsive controls. Now, let's compare this to the other game I've been playing lately, The End is Nigh, which, in terms of control, feels like the polar opposite of Crash Bandicoot. Much like Super Meat Boy, The End is Nigh focuses on single-screen puzzles, so there's much less punishment for death. You only lose a few seconds of progress, and it feels more like a teaching moment than a slap on the wrist. Death is expected, and it only motivates you to try harder and push yourself to beat the challenge at hand. But more importantly, you have extremely high control over your character. Ash moves very fast, and you can precisely adjust your trajectory or height by holding the jump button longer or moving the joystick ever so slightly. You can also grab the edge of a platform or shoot down to the ground quickly by holding the right trigger, allowing for quick and fluid movement at your own pace. Furthermore, it does a good job of building in difficulty over time. The game is paced incredibly well, and it adds all sorts of new obstacles throughout, like underwater mechanics, rubber launchers, or spiky chain chomps of death. It teaches you properly to make sure you know its mechanics, trains you to mastery, and then raises the stakes with a new danger. What I love most about The End is Nigh is all the collectibles and secrets jam-packed into every corner. You can gather tumors that normally require a little extra skill on every screen, as well as mega tumors hidden away in special alcoves or behind tricky barriers. You can even find old school game cartridges for some extra difficult levels. But when you beat the first part of the game, it unlocks hard mode versions of each stage. And the tumors you've collected up to that point now become your lives. So if you run out of tumors, it's game over and you have to start the entire section over. Yet again, it raises the stakes, but it rewards you for your completionism. And you're well prepared to tackle the new stages because of how the game has taught you its rules, and slowly upped the challenge along the way. My whole point is that none of the cool things The End is Nigh does would have been possible if it didn't feel good to control. Because movement itself is fun, it can test the player in unique ways and it doesn't get frustrating. Every mistake is your own fault, not the game's. So maybe this is why I wasn't able to finish any of the Crash games, and yet instead spent all my free time going back trying to complete The End is Nigh 100%. Its design ensures that it feels good to control. Is this easier said than done? Yes. But is it worth it? Absolutely. Can you think of any other games you've played where the controls either made or broke the experience for you? What are some games that you feel like are shining examples of good controls? And what are some other games that could use improvements? Tell me in the comments below and let's talk about it. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Stay frosty, my friends. Hey guys, just a quick reminder that if you enjoy watching Snowman Gaming videos, a great way to help support the channel is by going to dollarshaveclub.com/snowmangaming. If you sign up for just $1, you can try out some of their products, get a great shave, and it helps me out as well. They deliver the razors straight to your door and they're great quality for the price. So once again, go to dollarshaveclub.com/snowmangaming to start shaving time and shaving money today.